Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone that you're joining us here today. I wanted to welcome all of you to our webinar, Why is MMUN for My Child? My name is Angela Poyagi. I'm the Director of Client Services, as well as a former Montessori teacher and a mother too. I will say it is difficult to explain the ultimate gifts of MMUN, of the process, but it has been best described as quote unquote life-changing experience. So some of my former students would share things like, you know what, Miss Angela, it really changes the way you think. Or, I didn't know I could write that well. And I thought I would be more nervous. So, well, I'll do my best during my time with you here today to build some schema around what MMUN is, what it does, and how it is structured. Ultimately, it does something magical to the psyche, to the inner core, because it's a culmination of all the experiences and the growth throughout the process. So your child will research a country, they will research a topic that they are passionate about, something that breaks their heart. Your child will get in the shoes of an ambassador and take a stance on behalf of a country other than their own. Your child will write a position paper. They will write an opening speech. They will learn how to negotiate like a true diplomat. And in the end, your child will make connections with international peers, build empathy, stronger cultural awareness, and become a global citizen. Now, doesn't that sound incredible and amazing? So as I said, I will do my best here. I have shared my screen and we'll get started. So what is MMUN? MMUN is an experience-driven opportunity. It is for young students ages 9 to 15, where they study world cultures. They work collaboratively to find practical solutions to today's global problems. They establish lifelong foundational skills to become proactive citizens. It is also a learning exercise. Now, this is a culminating exercise, typically in a 4 or 6-day conference event, depending on if you're attending in person or online, during which students work with peers from around the globe in formal committee sessions. So what does MMUN do? Well, it does lots of things, like it develops a chance for students to consider the needs of other countries, to negotiate best solutions, and ultimately draft formal resolutions, which address real topics from the United Nations agenda. It feeds the needs of elementary children. Now, we said the ages are 9 to 15, who crave intellectual stimulation and want to understand human needs and cultures. It provides hands-on experience, even for middle school adolescents who want to understand society at a deep and practical level rather than just through book learning and class discussions. It teaches young people how they can take action when they perceive an injustice by becoming decision makers during their sensitive period for justice and morality. It shows young people how to interact with peers respectfully and collaboratively. It exposes content from social studies, history, and geography lessons, which then become key in understanding a country and its positions, as well as other nations and their people, their cultures, and their governments. It motivates students, allows them to be passionate about a topic or topics, and emphasize collaboration rather than just focusing on rewards, because it mirrors UN procedures. So many of you may have heard of Model UN, MUN. Model UN is very common, very popular amongst high schools and universities. However, Montessori Model in the United Nations is very unique in 2 regards. One, that it is offered to students as young as 9 years old. So as we said, that sensitive age for for justice and morality. And also the Montessori aspect is we don't offer any rewards. So the motivation is not to become the best delegate or to write the best position paper. It truly is to find consensus, to work collaboratively and find consensus, just as they do in the UN. And it also supports the whole child as far as their social, emotional, and cognitive development by developing strong writing skills, self-confidence, and communicating ideas diplomatically, and igniting their passion as well. Now, how is the MMUN experience structured, you might wonder? So what does that look like? Well, it begins with mixed age environments. So although we say it's ages 9 to 15, typically anywhere from 9 to 12 are grouped together, and then 12 to 15 are grouped together for the middle school. So they're in a 3-year mixed age environment. And this allows the students to build upon their experiences each year as novices, and then they can become experts throughout this process. And once they have reached the age of 15 or beyond 15, when they are in high school, we do offer a leadership program. So students who are really active in MMUN, really enjoy the experience, and they want to stay active and continue, they can join our bureau and become a leader in a committee session. Now, what is MMUN? So I have a video here to show you that encompasses different aspects. You'll hear from different people, adults and students. So I will let you have a watch here.
The Montessori Model UN process is one of incredible growth for students.
There's an energy around 2,000 kids who are eager and starting to work on today's problems.
It's not just a practice session, it's real life, real issues, and real solutions.
What MMUN does, it really aligns itself with this natural idealism of young people.
We watch in 2 days students grow so much.
This conference is so impactful because of the brilliant young minds that all bring their ideas, their questions, and their creativity to the table.
And we're really lucky to have this opportunity to do this.
What is interesting is to see what happens to students once they start realizing that there are problems that they can understand, there are problems that they have opinions on, and they have some ideas about solutions.
And it's really a beautiful thing to watch and see them transform from students to delegates to absolute world changers.
That is a very special part of the Montessori Model United Nations.
We have a responsibility to think about the future that we dream of, and then to understand the world that we will make. And that, for me, is an answer to the question of what is MMUN? Thank you.
It's like a really cool experience, and I really like it because I get to learn more about what's going on in the world, and I don't necessarily get a lot of that in school.
It has an impact on you. It inspires you in any way which is possible. From
to learn these things at a young age so that they remember it when they are older.
And stop world problems.
This year, the topic 1 is the situation in the Great Lakes region of Africa.
It was touched on with the African group, but in order to become part of the alliance, you have to sign the treaty, the Outer Space Treaty, but also we are going to add on to that treaty to make...
Contemplating wealthy countries could fund space exploration equipment for developing countries.
First of all, we got countries together. We all came up with different resolutions. So we had lots of different ideas, and then we went through a line by line review, and changes were made, like a lot of changes.
They're coming up through life, and they're able to continue these really important conversations that were started here at MMUN.
Is they're writing their clauses down, all their solutions, what they would like to see implemented when they adopt the resolution, if they do.
Young people such as yourselves actively help to positively influence the resolutions and policies developed within these very walls of the United Nations. I am personally very proud of your efforts to upholding and implementing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I believe in the power of the youth.
We're really lucky today to be at the United Nations in New York City. It's been an auspicious moment. We've been able to listen to the resolutions that the students have prepared.
Thank you, distinguished chair and fellow delegates. The Committee of Disarmament and International Security spent a day collaborating to create Resolution 1.1 on the topic of the prohibition of the dumping of radioactive waste.
It's been a great pleasure for us to work together with the Montessori Model United Nations, and this is exactly the type of engagement that we need from young people.
When they walk into this building, the idea of it being a simulation vanishes, and they are actually ambassadors, sitting in the very same seats as their adult counterparts. And in this room, they vote or pass resolutions by consensus. I think it's one of the most powerful parts of our whole conference.
It is more than wonderful that you are engaged in what we are doing.
So the video kind of gives you a little snapshot of what goes on at a conference. So you probably saw some formal and informal sessions there, some guest speakers. So our conference always starts with an opening ceremony. So our opening ceremony is launched with a flag procession. So all of the countries that are being represented and discussed and talked about at the conference, they are in a procession. So our opening ceremony kicks off with a flag procession, some inspiring words from ambassadors, and the MMUN staff will also talk a little bit about what is going to be expected over the next couple of days. It's essentially a pep rally for the delegates. So all the committees, all the delegates, all the bureau members are recognized, and the topics are displayed and presented for everyone to know what they will be observing over the next few days. And then the next day after opening ceremony is day one of committee sessions. That's broken up into two sections, a morning section, afternoon section, with a lunch break in between. Then after the second session is a dinner break. And after day one, the event is the cultural performance night. And then day two of committee sessions, same, a morning session, a lunch break, and afternoon session. And then in that evening, there is an event for students, which is the celebration night, where students can choose to exchange emails. They're informal, so they're in their casual dress. There is also DJ and some dancing opportunities. There are some board games for them to play. So it has a little bit of something for everyone to just celebrate all of their hard work and their connections that they made together. And then the final day, the fourth day of the conference, is the closing ceremony. So the closing ceremony is where A few speakers will speak. They're considered part of the closing bureau. And so each committee is called up to the podium and they give a quick summary about things that were discussed and what happened in their committee session. And everyone is recognized. This is also a chance for final voting if they did not reach consensus in their committee sessions. And so it ends with some inspirational speeches for the students to leave with a good sense of all of their work and the togetherness that they experienced while at a conference. So that's typically what a conference will look like, an in-person conference. Now, an online conference, it's very similar. It's just spread out into 6 sessions, just so that they're not as long. And I will show you what we call a year at a glance. So this would be kind of like the quote unquote academic year for MMUN. So it's not a full year, but it's the academic year or the year-long program, as we would like to call it. So we call it a year-long program with conference, and it is structured something like this. So typically in first in September is when registration opens, and that is where they will typically, even just before registration opens or once registration opens, teachers, coaches, guides who are running MMUN will maybe do some peace education lessons. They may also talk about the UN and its organs, what the UN can and cannot do. And then once a group has registered and they've chosen their countries and their topics, so the topics are already pre-assigned, they can dive into their research. So this would be a time where they would be doing their country research and trying to understand their country's position. So they're doing a really deep dive. So not just, what is the country, their capital, where they geographically located, but really doing a deep, deep dive. So they are trying to learn about the government, about what are some things that have happened in the past, and lots and lots of information. So they want to really get to know a country. This is important because when they go to apply to their topic, they have to have a really solid understanding of what solutions are going to be viable based on this country's past history, based on their leaders, based on things that would pass. So not necessarily what we think or want, but what will be reasonable and viable for a country. So that is when they are considering some solutions. They could be having some keyboarding and internet guidelines, lessons. It all depends on where they are. So if students are part of an older group and they've already done a lot of this type of research that is web-based. So because we're researching current topics, we can't use books because they would be outdated. So they're using a lot of online resources. So some students have more experience than others in that, but those are things that the MMUN coordinator would guide your student with. So one thing that I can also say is that in order to register for an MMUN conference, an MMUN coordinator must be an MMUN coordinator. So they must have taken a training that was led by MMUN. So not just any Model UN. So they can't just come with Model UN experience. Everyone is required to take our training so that we make sure that everyone is on the same page for all of the lessons from beginning to end. Now, once they are doing their country research, then they typically will start researching their topic, and then they will write their position paper. So they're not beginning their position paper until they have delved really deeply into country research and topic research. So they also could have some lessons on bibliographies, note-taking, editing, peer editing, and things like that. This could also be a time because one of the first position papers deadlines is in December for our February conference. So they could be working on their corrections and reviews with teachers to submit those position papers. They could also be working on their sustainable development designs. Now, this is an optional thing, but this would be a good time that students could work on that. Now, SDG is Sustainable Development Goals, so there's one theme that is chosen for each conference, and students have an opportunity to submit a hand drawing based on that theme. And the MMUN team chooses one design that is presented during the opening ceremony, and that artist is invited to share with us the motivation behind the art piece. Now, in December is typically when financial balances are due. So your school may ask for things prior or after, but in December is when our final balances are due to MMUN. That is because MMUN does make financial commitments on everyone's behalf, especially to the hotel venue. So we extend it until December to give schools an opportunity and groups an opportunity to fundraise. And this is also a time where coordinators are submitting position papers on behalf of all of the delegates, and students are also working on their opening speeches, which the opening speech is essentially just their position paper, and they are pulling parts of their position paper, mainly their past history and some possible solutions, and it's just to be 1 minute in length, so nothing new from their outside of their position paper. And this is also a time students could be having some fun with cultural foods, some music, some traditions, even during the holidays. And then in the new year in January, they could be working on their country display boards, or they could have worked on them at the beginning when they were doing their country research. And also this would be a time where groups would introduce parts of a committee session and the rules of procedure. Now, with the country display board, you may have seen a glimpse in the video, or you can check out some of our other videos online, but all of the students work together to create a country display board for each country that they're representing at a conference. And those are displayed physically at the in-person conference. They're displayed by regional group. So it becomes a really nice museum type setup where all conference participants can freely enjoy all of the display boards and learn some things from the delegates that they have chosen to display. And then in February, that is typically, so February is the very first conference, our New York conference. We have a February New York conference and a March New York conference and an April online conference. So typically in February, at the beginning, groups may be practicing a mock committee session. They will be probably practicing their speeches at home and in class. They could be talking about elements of the event. So if you're on site, this would include any trip logistics, rules for travel, and emphasizing decorum. If it's online, you'll be preparing your digital space, reviewing the schedule and the links, because that's going to be something that typically is going to be done more independently unless it's during your school hours. And of course, still emphasizing decorum as well. And then things that are ongoing are the social and artistic expression. So that's going to be the design contest, which, as mentioned before, is a sustainable development goal theme for each conference, or a cultural performance. So the cultural performance can be something from a country that your delegates are representing, or it can be from your own personal culture. Now, something new to our structure of the MMUN experience, this is new as of last year during COVID. We offer working sessions where they are led by MMUN Bureau members, and the topics are based on various current issues, and students join Zoom sessions online, And it's a chance for them to practice rules of procedure in committee room style session. So it's a really, really great opportunity. It's a confidence booster. It builds experience. It builds lots of great things for the delegates. And it's also really helpful to teachers as well, because it gives delegates an opportunity to work with international peers as well. So not just their classroom peers. And then the community meetups are led by MUN staff and sometimes special guests. They are casual and informal, typically include a lot of different types of icebreakers and opportunities for students to make connections and just meet with international peers that they could continue relationships with offline after the community meetups, or even physically meet up at a conference and beyond. So that is our goal, is to help make those connections. Now, what are some ways that you can help? So you can initiate discussions with your delegates by asking them questions about their country or their topic. Try not to just be like, how's MMUN going? Or, do you need any help with MMUN? So instead of just giving really broad questions where they can answer yes or no, try asking specific questions. Tell me something you're shocked to learn about your country, or, something fascinating about the topic, or, what are you thinking, or where does X country stand? Things like that. So they make really excellent dinner conversations, but I will say, be prepared, because sometimes it makes you think, are you smarter than a fifth grader? So be prepared for some really, really great conversations. Another way that you can help is to share your own culture. So you could volunteer to teach a native dance to your child's classmates and peers, or a native dance, or cook a traditional dish with them, or something like that, where you can share your culture, or if your culture happens to be a culture that they're studying, that's even greater for them. You can also help by supporting fundraising for schools. If your school is doing, or your group is doing, some fundraising, organizing car washes. Some things that people have done in the past are like pizza days, yard sales, the coupon book sales, things like that. You can also volunteer to be a chaperone at a conference, all depending on if your school welcomes that or sets it up that way. Some schools don't take parent volunteers, and they only use staff, because they really want it to be a rite of passage for students and to foster the independence for them. So it just depends. And then other ways that you can help are just by showing support by physically attending a conference. So you can attend as an observer, and at a conference, you also have the opportunity to participate in parent-teacher workshops. So that's both for in-person and online. Just a short summary here is what we believe is MUN connects children to the world in a new way at a time when they are most sensitive. So this is this sensitive period for justice and moral development, as Maria Montessori has pointed out to us. And so as they consider the needs of other countries, negotiate best solutions, and ultimately draft formal resolutions, which address real topics from the United Nations agenda. So it's not just this role play or this mock session. They're actually addressing real topics from the United Nations agenda, which is something that makes it really powerful for them and really allows them to have a voice. So speaking of delegates having a voice, I have this short video to show you of MMUN delegates. This is called If I Could Solve Any Problem. And I must say, it's probably one of my favorite videos.
Nice question.
I've been thinking this question for quite a long time.
Okay,
Every day you wake up and you look at the news, you see that there is bombing here and there's bombing there and bombing everywhere. So if I could solve any problem, that problem will be war.
Many wars are caused because of world hunger, and many children die. Many people, period, die. So if you can cure that, you can stop quite a bit of wars.
some countries don't have a lot of food and water. That's what bugs me a lot.
Poverty. Every single day when I go out, I see a homeless guy. He's always asking for money in a cup, and it's not right that there's people out there poor. Poverty is very normal in Nigeria, and the government doesn't really do much about the war. That's all.
And I want to do something about it. I would like to help with the United Nations.
I'd like to go to the countries and help them if in any case, like medication, doctor.
I think distributing more doctors to Niger.
And I just wipe out all major diseases from the world.
Even people with just depression and things like that. I think mental illnesses definitely need to be taken more seriously.
It bothers me a lot.
Because my half-brother has an extreme case of schizophrenia.
Because I've known a lot of people who've had cancer before, and I just want it to just go away. When I grow up, I'd like to solve the small arms trade, mass shootings, and that kind of stuff. It's violent.
I feel really strongly about ending them.
Though I'm not sure I'll be on the battlefield because I'm afraid of being shot.
Well, recently I've come up with this idea that if I can find this kind of a political system to make the best political system ever, I'm gonna let every country in the world use this kind of political system.
Probably technology.
I'm really working hard on it.
I would really like to solve racism.
I really want to solve the problem with terrorists.
I want to be able to replace the friendships between disabled and the enabled people. Because I have been living as a disabled person for a long time.
And people are stereotyping Muslims so much.
And discrimination as a whole.
Oh, you run like a girl, you throw like a girl, and it makes us feel less than we should. So.
Well, sometimes people are just prejudiced and they don't know. Sometimes people are raised that way.
And I feel like all people, disabled in different ways or not, need to work together to try and get up to being enabled ourselves. If you have a speaking problem, to want to speak publicly. If you have eye problems, you want to be an optometrist. If you have troubles focusing, you want to be like a yoga teacher. Like, I want to help make all of those things happen, no matter what it is you want to do. When I grow up, I want to help solve that.
So that was a video from the delegates themselves, completely unprompted. So I think that is what I appreciate the most about them. If sometimes it makes you wonder what would the world actually be like if children could run the world, through their lens. Now it concludes my presentation here with you today. So I'm going to stick around for some questions and comments, but to find out more information about MMUN, so whether you want to know details about our conferences, you want to maybe review some past resolutions that students have come up with, you can visit our website at montessori-mun.org. You can always email me at info@montessori-mun.org. I'm one of the main people behind that email. Or you can always find us on social media. So we are on various channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. So, please seek us out. I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I will also stop our recording. I believe our audience is a mix of teachers and parents here today. So if you could share any comments about what you've seen, what you heard today, if you were a teacher or a parent who's had a delegate already attend a conference and you've come to just learn a little bit more today, if you could share some reassurance or some inspiration with some of our guests here today, that would be great. I think it'd be helpful for them. But if anyone has any questions or concerns, feel free to share with us now.